From Anshe Spar Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parashat Bemidbar, traveling in God's midst. If we're looking at Parashat Bemidbar, it's not merely a list of what are the tribes and how many Jews are there in each tribe, but it's a matter of camping around the Ohel Moed, around the Mishkan, around the tabernacle, around the holy ark of God. For instance, you have one verse here, it says, V'nasa Ohel Moed, Machaneh Leviyim b'toch ha'machanot. The tent of meeting, the Mishkan, the tabernacle, which is the camp of the Levites, it should be inside all the camps of the Jews. We have the camp of Judah, the camp of Dan, the camp of Reuven. All these camps, Ephraim, all these camps should travel with the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, the Ohel Moed, in the center of all these camps. Or, another verse, Ish al diglo b'otot leveit avotam. Each man stands on his flag of his tribe to his family. Chanu b'nei Yisrael, that's where the Jews should encamp. Mineged saviv l'Ohel Moed yachanu. All the tribes encamped around, circling the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting, the place of the divine presence of God near the ark. This notion that the Jewish people are to encamp, and in their center will be a holy camp of God, it will be the holy Mishkan, the holy tabernacle, or later on, the Beit HaMikdash, is found not only in the desert, but even as the Jews come into the land of Israel. Whether the tabernacle was in Shiloh, a little bit more central north, or whether it's in Jerusalem, central south, the temple was always at the center, with all the Jewish people having easy access to get to Jerusalem or to Shiloh, wherever the Mishkan may have been. As a matter of fact, in the end of days, Yechezkel says that the gates of Jerusalem will be known according to the tribes, because since the tabernacle is surrounded, the Mikdash, the temple, is surrounded by all the tribes, therefore the gates to all of the gates of Jerusalem are named after each of the tribes. One tribe will be the Judah gate, the Levi gate, etc., the Shimon gate, the Issachar gate, etc. Because since God is in our midst, and all the tribes encamp around it, therefore it's a symbol of the fact that the temple is in the center of the Jewish people and their camp, and their nation, and their land. Each gate is named after a different tribe who, so to speak, encamp or live around that central place, that central Mikdash. So the idea is that the Jewish people should be united around God, around the Holy Ark. However, something went wrong in the building of the very first Beit HaMikdash, and I'd like to suggest that it was that problem that led ultimately to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. If you look in 2 Samuel and Shmuel Bet, you find this story of David dancing the ark. He's dancing with the ark to go to Jerusalem, and they're very, very excited. And David is dancing in front of Hashem. He's dancing wildly. Everyone is bringing the ark to Jerusalem, the city of David, and they're blowing the shofars, they're dancing, and there's a lot of excitement. But as we know, something dampened the moment. And that was David's wife, Michal. She says, Manich Badayom, oh, how beautiful, how wonderful and honored it is for David, the king of Israel, to be seen in front of all the handmaidens. The way David was dressed, the way he danced, to her, this was very despicable behavior for a king. David turns to Michal and he says, God chose me over your father, and I'll do even more than that. I'll dance even more than that if I want to. And Michal, daughter of Shaul, daughter of the previous king of Israel, she never had any children until the end of her days. And then the next story is that David asked for it to build a temple. And God says, well, not now, but maybe later. What's this all about? Unbeknownst to David, the marriage of David and Michal was a symbol of the unity of the Jewish people. Here, the tribes of Judah, represented by David, the tribe of Benjamin, represented by Michal, daughter of Shaul, was a coming together, a unification of the two families of Israel. The Rachel family, represented by their son Benjamin and Saul and Michal, and the Leah family, represented by Judah and David. And by this marriage and this loving relationship that they would have, it would symbolize the coming together of all the tribes. And in that place where David and Michal would be married and unified together and bear children, this would be a place where God would be in our midst, a place of unity of all the tribes, of all the families of Israel. But at this moment, where Michal starts up with David, and David escalates the fight by saying, oh yeah, I'll make it even worse, and therefore they never had children again, means that there was a break between David and the family of Saul. David and Saul, who had once had a loving relationship. David and Jonathan, who had such a loving relationship. David and Michal, who had a loving relationship. It ends here. And with that, when David asked to build the temple in this place, he's turned down, perhaps in some way, because of his failure to link up with the other tribes. Solomon would build the temple. Perhaps he was more of a unifying figure of all of Israel. But eventually it was Solomon's draconian measures and his high taxes that led to his sons breaking up of the kingdom. And again, there was no unity. And eventually there was the destruction of the temple. Perhaps the sad ending of the marriage of Michal and David is similar to the ending of any marriage. As the Gemara says at the end of Gittin, that Kol Megarish Ishto Rishona, a man divorces his first wife. Afilu mizbeach morid av demaos. The temple itself weeps and mourns. The temple is a symbol of unity. Unity of families, unity of the family of Israel, unity of all the Jewish people in service and dedication to the Holy Ark, which is at the center of the Jewish people. When there is pirud, when there is division, when there is debate, machlokas, when there is family strife between Michal and David, between Leah and Rachel, between Benjamin and Judah, then ultimately when you asked to build the temple, something was missing. Somehow it wouldn't work. And ultimately, I would argue, that it was this story, the breakup of the marriage of David and Michal, that ultimately led to the fact that this temple would not be a fulfillment of the original idea of Saviv lo omed yachanu, that everyone should encamp around the temple in unity. This led to pirud, to division. And with that, the seeds were sown for the destruction of the temple. And how will we get back to the idea of Yechezkel? The idea that the gates of Jerusalem have our names on it. It's a place we're surrounded by the tribes of Israel. Only through unity. Unity with other Jews, unity with our wives and husbands, unity with our families. Through that love and unity and dedication where Israel, God, Jerusalem, and the Holy Ark of Jerusalem are at the center. With that, surely the temple we rebuilt, as Rav Kook said, with ahavat chinam, free love of all people, all Jews. Clearly, with that love, dedication, the temple will surely be rebuilt. Thank you for joining us here for our discussion of Parashat Bemidbar, preparation for Shavuot, where at Mount Sinai, the Jews too stood all around, and God was at the center. I want to thank Jason Lefkowitz for making today's presentation possible. I want to thank you all for joining us here at the Anshe Sefard Beth El congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.